Hey, welcome to Response, to talk about true worship. Today, my guests and I are going to be discussing the topic of cultivating and building up a solid worship team, so you're going to want to stick around for that. Hey, welcome to Response. My name is Johnny Zacchio, the worship coordinator here at Calvary Chapel Bible College in Murrieta, California. And today I'm so excited and delighted to have with us a good friend and my worship pastor, Eddie Gonzales.
Good to be here, Johnny.
Dude, thanks for coming out, man.
Thank you for the invite.
Sweet. So you've been through a lot. I've gotten to talk to you a lot of times about like all the experiences you've had in ministry. So I would just want to ask you, just tell us maybe a little bit about yourself. When did you come to know the Lord, and a little bit about how that happened, and when did you know that God had called you to worship ministry, specifically what you're doing right now, and then also kind of tell us what are you doing presently?
Well, I came to know the Lord in February of 1998, just a little bit, so I can just kind of put into perspective. That night I'd gone out and promised my brother that I would go to church with him the following day, and I did, and the Lord got a hold of me that the next day, and so started serving the Lord and or following the Lord in 98, and then started going to a small church, Shepherd's Heart, back in Oceanside. I was living in San Diego at the time, and a little short time after that I ended up starting to go to Calvary Chapel Vista, and so that's where I started getting into serving the Lord in music and ministry. And so I ended up playing with the worship teams that were there at that time, and the Lord just started developing me, as with the worship leaders that were there at the time, and just started learning and watching and seeing the things that they were doing, and then started to play at different other churches like Maranatha Chapel on occasions, and with different worship leaders, and so that work began in my life, to start in the music ministry, and there was a lot of things that I learned through the years as I went to Calvary Vista, and then in 2004, the Lord called me and my wife and my 3 daughters to Colorado, and we moved up to Colorado, and I'd never been someone to lead with a acoustic guitar, and that's where it started for me, and it was a stretch for me, and so it's like, okay, Lord, I don't know how to do this, but I'm gonna go for it, and that's where I felt that the Lord called me to now lead in front of the congregation with song, and so that's when I started to being stretched by the Lord, and so then my ministry just began, and then I started developing musicians there the way that I saw the way when I was at Vista or at Maranatha Chapel, just the way that they would do things, and incorporated a lot of those things into the ministry, and some things I didn't do right, some things I did right and wrong, and so I just started developing musicians, and when you go to Colorado, it's nothing like California. I mean there's not a lot of musicians there, so it really put me in a place where, like, okay, I'm gonna have to do this a one-on-one thing with people in order to have a bass player or a drummer or keyboardist. So I started diving into that area of discipling one-on-one when it came to the music part of it, and the Lord just grew me through all of that, and then fast forward, we moved to California again in 2009, and we ended up moving to Menifee, California. That's where my wife's family is, and so she wanted to be closer to her family, and that's when I found Calvary Chapel Canyon Hills and started going there and I wanted to just sit for a while and not you know, right away get into ministry. I thought that was really important for me, you know. And so I waited about 6 months before I started, you know, really getting involved at the church there. And presently today, I'm the worship pastor there. I've been full-time at Calvary Chapel, Canyon Hills. It's been such a fun journey, being able to just implement the things that I've learned over the many years of playing with different musicians. And I get a joy of just like being able to help people learn, teach them how to play an instrument, and there's been a lot of great people that have come out through this, and cool. Yeah, that's just been a joy for me, man. So right now, currently, that's what I'm doing, and the Lord has called me to that. I've been at Calvary Canyon Hills for 7 years now.
7 years, wow.
Yeah,
that's so great. And so you've had the privilege of discipling different, like
yes.
mainly the musicians, right? I'm sure there's other people in the church, but like a majority of the ministry that you get to do is like pouring into these musicians week in and week out, and
definitely.
So you put together, you know, so you have like a full worship team then. So you have, you know, drums and what else do you have on stage there presently with you?
So presently on stage I have drums, bass, I have keyboard, I have electric guitar. At one point I had percussions there, but and then I got the vocalist, that whether it be female or male vocalist, and you know, in the acoustic guitar. So it's kind of like what most full bands will have. Cool. So it's
still,
there.
and it's diverse. It's cool.
It's diverse. It is.
You get various different personalities that come through to be on the team. Various different people, different backgrounds of music.
Yes.
You know, people with maybe different styles.
Exactly. Yeah.
And I think it's cool when we're talking about cultivating worship teams, worship members, worship bands. When we talk about this topic, we can talk about all the background and all of the background of the music styles that people are coming from, and how talented they may be or what instrument they play. But underneath all of that and kind of getting to the foundation, I guess I just want to ask you, like, where's the foundation when it comes to developing a solid worship team? Like, I guess I would say, where would you start when it comes to, if you're developing it from scratch, where do you start with actually implementing members? And if you do, what sort of characteristics and qualities do you like look for? So I guess it's a twofold question.
Well, where I would start is relationships. It always has to start there. You get to know people. You know, for me, I want to know who they are. I want them to know who I am, and so I think relationship is super important. And we need to take our cue from Jesus. I mean, when he chose the 12, he hung out with them. You know, before he sent them off, he you know, the Bible doesn't say what they were doing at all times, but I know there was laughter, there was talks, hanging out, you know. And so I think that for any ministry to develop, and you know, for the sake of the topic that we're talking about, the worship ministry, you have to build relationships with people so that you can establish trust and you can speak into their life, you know. And so what I've been able to do at Calvary Canyon Hills is develop that relationship with all these people from different walks of life, different backgrounds, like you were saying a little bit ago. And these people are people that played heavy metal. Some people played, you know,
they're from metal backgrounds.
Metal backgrounds, you know, different things. And the one thing in common that we have is Jesus, and that's what needs to. That's what puts us together. And so I've always marveled at that, like. At the idea that, you know, without Christ, maybe none of us would ever know each other. But the Lord has put these people in my life, and the Lord has given me the responsibility of like knowing them, getting to be in their lives, and so you have to establish relationship for sure to be able, and it also has to extend. It has to also be out of ministry as well. Relationship should continue out of ministry. Not just a Sunday morning thing. I think it should continue on. And so for me, what I encourage the the team is to always make themselves available to other people in the church as well. Let them know, like, we're a part of this at this church. We're not this band that you see and then everybody else. You know, sometimes maybe we can come across that way. And so I tell them, like, go and be a part of the congregation as well. And so let the people see that you have a relationship with them as well, as we continue to have a relationship together. And then your other, you know, what you were saying as what characteristics or qualities
or character.
You know, when it comes to that, I'm always looking for someone that is going to be teachable, someone that is a true worshiper, that comes to Sundays even when they're not playing, when they're not serving, but comes all the time. I want to see people that I'm always looking for people that serve others, that are not only interested in this ministry, but like they're willing to get their hands dirty somewhere else. And so I'm always looking for those kinds of qualities in people. Even one of the qualities that I look for sometimes is someone who is willing to say no and yes to some things, because you can get that person that wants to dive themselves into everything, and it's like, that's not good for them. But someone that's able to prioritize, someone that's able to say, hey, I can play a couple weeks and 2 weeks off. I need to be with my family or do things like that. And so I like that about to be able to see that in people. I think it's important.
That's so good. And I think that's like, obviously that could be the foundation where it comes to the qualities that you look for in people, that they're a true worshiper, they're teachable. But then we also understand that there are those people that have a good heart.
They do.
But then there's the other musical side of things where we recognize, oh man, maybe they, I guess, aren't where they need to be musically. So I guess the question is, like, how important is it to cultivate skill? And why is skill so important when it comes to a worship team? And how do you go about helping people cultivate skill that pleases God? Not just like the skill that, look at me, look how skillful I am, but like a skill that pleases God. And like, how do you go about, I guess, raising that up in people?
Yeah. So, you know, like I said, I have people from different backgrounds and different levels of musicianship. And so the way I go about it is, you know, I always look at the heart. Where's their heart before the skill even? Because there's many ways to cultivate the skill. I do it through Multitracks, which is a website where I can help them grow, or I do it through one-on-one, like, all right, let's learn the parts together, or videos. I use worship artistry a lot to cultivate that skill in them. But what matters to me more is, the fact that they are growing in their walk and their faith with the Lord, you know. And so the skill I think is important because it was important to the Lord. We see in Chronicles, you know, there was 288 skilled musicians before the Lord. And, you know, Paul himself, you know, like a skillful master builder, you know, he speaks of himself. And so I think that the skill is important, but and it can be developed through material, through videos, like I was saying. But more than that, you know, I always want to point them to Jesus. Like, this skill is being developed to give it back to the Lord, to bless people with it, you know.
Yeah, so you're not only just cultivating the practical skill, but it's also like, why are we even being skillful in the first place?
Yeah, exactly. You know, and so I'm just looking towards that. You know, it always encourages them too as they get better. You know, the implementation of the Metronome has been
that's a big one.
Has been huge in our church, and it's helped them. It's helped everyone in the worship team to, you know, get better at their craft, honing in their craft a lot better.
So now, do you just ask just the drummer to like learn how to play with a metronome, or do you ask everybody on the team? And how do you go about, I guess, implementing that? Like, how do you implement a metronome to a team that maybe isn't used to that?
In the beginning, it was very hard.
Yeah.
It was very hard because everyone got scared at the fact that we have to follow this click, and but I did it hopefully I did it very gently and very loving, to the point where I never wanted to make anybody do something they weren't comfortable with on Sunday morning. That's not my heart. My heart was, we have a place to practice. There's where we can mess up, where you don't have to get it right, and we can go at it little by little, and and slow. I don't care how slow we go at it, but we can learn together. And when we feel comfortable, we'll start implementing the metronome. And so that's what I started doing. And I started telling everyone to download an app called Tempo. And I said, hey, whenever you're practicing, start practicing at the BPMs for the songs. And I told them, I gave them a detail as to why it's so important. There's measurements and the things that you can do within a measurement and all that. And so people took to it, but it's the way that you approach the situation, and people have taken to it and they've loved it, and it's helped our ministry as a team together to just grow. And now no one wants to play without it.
That's great. No, yeah, it keeps everyone dialed in.
Yeah, it keeps everyone dialed in. The thing is, what do you do when someone new joins the worship team?
Yeah, what do you do?
So like with this new worship team member that just happened to join the worship team. It was one of those things when I did rehearsal, I told them, if that's where I brought up the metronome idea, and I treat it the same way. I will never put you in a situation where it's uncomfortable for you. But let's practice. Let's make that a part of the rehearsal. Let's make that a part of what you do with music. And so far, everybody has been, receptive to it, and they've enjoyed it. And it stretches them. It stretches me as well. And it's been really good for our team, to help us out.
That's so good. Yeah, I could just tell how that would even bless the church as a result of it. You just get more skilled as a result. So I've given him examples of what happens without a metronome, that I've been through many of these times when we're playing on Sunday morning and we start the song too slow or too fast or wrong tempo or wrong signature. and I was like, man, it's such a distraction for us and maybe for some people out there. And so what can we do to make it less distracting on Sunday morning? And that's there's a thought to that. It's like, we want to make the focus to be all on the Lord, but when we're causing distraction, that takes it away from Jesus and points it to us. And so I'm just thinking about those things and those ideas. That's so good. That's really great. And so I guess taking it now to a very practical thing with your worship team when it comes to discipleship, how do you go about discipling the team? Like, what does that look like for a worship leader? How can a worship leader, I guess, better cultivate discipleship and unity in their team? And also, like, when it even comes to the hard things, like asking someone to take a step back from being on the team for a little while and to take a step down, and or even just telling somebody who wants to be on the team that they can't be because of a certain reason. Like, even just those hard things, I guess, how do you go about the discipleship aspect of things and all that kind of comes with that?
Those are hard moments for sure. But, a lot of times in rehearsals, I use teachable moments. Sometimes we're going through a song, and then all of a sudden someone starts talking about something and it becomes a teachable moment, and we stop for a good 10 minutes sometimes, and when we start talking about the Bible, and we start talking about growing in our faith, and so there's teachable moments that happen all the time. Another way to have good discipleship in music ministry is devotional time with your worship team, praying together. All those things will allow for hearts to be ready to receive at any given time. Now, when it comes to the issue of having to have somebody step down, that's always a hard thing for any worship leader, to be able to have to tell someone to take a step back, or And so the way that I've always approached it, I've approached it first by getting on my knees and praying and asking the Lord to ready their hearts to receive this. And I always ask the Lord, give me the words to say, because I don't want to at any point to offend this person or to make this person feel like they're unworthy of ever doing this ever again, or whatever the case might be. So for that one, I do really prepare to make sure that I'm ready and they're ready. And a lot of times they might not be as ready, but I like to be able to be honest with them gently in love and say like, hey, at this time, and I've had to do that before with a team member, that wouldn't practice. And I wasn't upset about the idea. I was just like, maybe the Lord's not calling you to this. Maybe the Lord's calling you somewhere else. But if you feel like the Lord's calling you this, here's some requirements. Here's some expectations. You have to give them expectations. And one of them is you got to practice. You got to be able to meet these things in order to be part of the worship team, because everybody else is doing it, and that's unfair. So sometimes I have to go that route, but it's always hard though.
Right. Absolutely. Yeah, it's not the funnest part.
It's not the funnest part, for sure.
Wow. Well, I mean, that's all just like really good, I think, practical tools that we can take to best cultivate a team that glorifies God and serves the church and blesses the church. That's what we're here for. We're here to serve the people, feed the people, partner with God in that. So I guess what would be either from the Word of God, from maybe a thing that the Lord has put on your heart, what final exhortation or encouragement would you give to any worship leader or anyone even thinking about getting involved in ministry in this way?
Oh man, I would encourage them that you're gonna be with people, and Jesus loved being with people, and it's not always the funnest thing to being with people, because you're gonna get different hearts, different minds that think differently, and but if God has called you to the position of worship ministry, are you willing to be humble? And I always think about Jesus when it came to washing the disciples' feet. Like, he humbled himself and became the lowest of the lowest and washed their feet. Are you ready to do that when it comes to these people? Because you're going to get people that are at a level that are great musicianship, and people that are going to be not as good. And so are you ready to meet those people's needs? Are you ready to serve them? They're not serving you, you're serving them. You're washing their feet. You're pouring into them. You're getting your hands dirty in there. You're making time, sacrifice to be with them, to show them, to understand, being sensitive to their life. Some of these people are married and they don't get all those hours to practice. Some of these people have jobs that don't allow them to have as much practice. So I'm always thinking about these things, being sensitive to all these things. And so I would just encourage any worship leader to allow the Lord to use those moments with all these people to help them in the process of becoming a better leader, to point them to Jesus all the time as they're doing this. Wow. So it's been a learning thing for me, and it continues to be a learning thing for me as I meet new people that want to be part of the team, or even the people that are still with me. I never want to be like, what's the word, complacent, or thinking that I'm going to keep these people all the time. I'm always thinking like, Lord, you're going to bring other people, and so it gives me the opportunity to say, okay, Lord, again, I get to do this. And so Jesus said, greater works will you do when I leave. And for many of us in our ministries, we get to do those works that the Lord allows us to do through people, and we have to be good stewards of and be faithful to the calling that the Lord has given to us.
That's so great.
So I just try as best as I could, man.
No, I honestly, I think that was definitely of the Lord, man, and something that we're all working on, and like cultivating people, being with people that cultivating that shepherd's heart in us. And so I just want to thank you for taking the time to do this.
Thank you.
Thank you for being with us today and talking about this topic.
It was awesome being here, and thank you again.